Smile.
But I'm not happy.
People
Why are you
staring.
I don't want to do this.
You have to. They'll know
No one
something's
cares
wrong.
about your
Why
life.
is that bad?
Nobody cares. They won't understand.
Nobody
You want to go
cares.
home. You'll hurt their feelings.
This was ridiculous. What are
Why
we even
just
talking
talking
about?
about?
Just
You want
keep
to
them
like
happy.
you. What if they
They're
think
gonna
you're
be
stupid?
mean.
Just
Just
keep them happy.
Just keep them happy. Just lie.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.
Hello and welcome to Real Honest, the podcast where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and all the things in between. I'm your host, my name is Samantha, and you probably won't always like me, but I will always be honest with you. I've had a lot of conversations this week about friendships, specifically when it comes to being too much or friendship being hard because one person requires too much time and energy. And personally, I am of the opinion that you cannot ever be too much. I think that if there are people in your life that feel on a regular basis like you are too much, then I think those are not your people. I don't think that you need to dial it back. I think you need to find other people. But I am curious what you guys think of that. Speaking of being too much or doing too much, I'm deciding if I want to change the goals check-in segment next year to just like pick one goal that I'm going to follow the whole year and just update you guys on that. It would be my novel. I mean, obviously, but I go back and forth between I think that would be helpful for me in terms of making sure that I have some kind of update, but I also think it would be not helpful in terms of like if I end up taking 6 months off of working on it at all, then it's going to just be an I did nothing update every single week. My novel is coming along slowly but surely. I'm at, 63,000 words total right now. I'm aiming for around 80, so like well past the halfway point, which is really exciting. I'm still struggling with trying to figure out how to work in a regular routine. Like I've tried the whole thing where like I set up blocks of time every week to write, but I can't pre-plan being creative. So what I run into is like I have the day blocked or the hour blocked on my calendar and I'm like, awesome, like I'm going to write for this hour on Tuesday. But then I sit down in that hour and I'm like, well, I'm not really in the mood. Like I need to do something else. I need to clean my house, like whatever. I will come up with absolutely any distraction to do anything but sit down and write. So then I tried to just repurpose the time mentally to say like, okay, it's not necessarily going to be an hour of writing. It's going to be an hour of working on the book regardless. So even if that's like going for a walk and thinking about it, if it's outlining, if it's editing, which again, like people say not to edit as you go, but I find it more helpful to stay in the momentum of if I can't force myself to write. I do love going back and reading what I've already written, which maybe that's crazy to be very entertained by your own story, but I find it very fun. And so it usually hypes me back up to go back and read something and like maybe I forgot about the scene and I'm like, oh, that's a good line. It's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of creepy. Like I like it. And then that helps me get new ideas of like what I want to do next. So hopefully this will be a better routine that I can get into in 2026. We'll see. I typically start every year with a social media fast, or at least that's what I've been doing for the past maybe 5 years or so. And it was born out of like the social media addiction and like not wanting to be so attached to my phone, and also just like social media making me really, really sad. So usually I would start with like January, deleting all the apps and just like not accessing them at all. And then February and March were like intentionally spending a certain amount of time every single day training my algorithms of like searching for certain things, unfollowing certain accounts, following certain accounts to make sure that like I was only seeing stuff that would keep me in like a positive space while also not wanting an echo chamber. Like I also want to make sure that I am exposed to different types of people and different types of ideas. And so I spent a lot of intentional time on doing that. I feel like doing this for the past 5 years, like I no longer feel like addicted to social media or like I have to be on it all the time. I'm pretty good at sticking to my like 10-minute a day limit. But because I've gotten used to starting every year this way, I'm like, do I do it again just to do it? Or do I find something else for January? And the perfectionist in me is like, there must be like something that you're doing for 31 days in January, which like, maybe not. Maybe I just keep doing what I'm doing right now and there doesn't have to be like a specific thing that I'm starting the new year with. Of course, it might be worth doing the fast just to get away from the Star Wars pros on TikTok that hate me because I'm just sitting here like, so I made one of my friends watch all the Star Wars movies with me because I have never seen them. And I used to work in entertainment news, and it was like a big point of discussion that like there were a lot of pop culture icons that I did not see along the way of growing up. And so that was like one of the things on the list that was like a really big deal that I just missed. And I wanted to like go back and review it and be a part of it. And like, you guys, I wish that I loved Star Wars. I legitimately want to love it. I just don't. And so my friend that I was watching it with me, she didn't enjoy it either. And so, but we had so many friends that were so into it, and they were like, you have to stick with it and you have to watch it this way and this order. And like, you're going to love this and you're going to love that. And like, we didn't love any of it. But what we did love was calling our friends and like texting them to talk about it, to say like, why do you love this so much? Like, please explain this to us, because we legitimately are like trying to do the thing. It's just like not, but that became fun. Like, it was having the conversations and it was sharing our reactions that like, even though we didn't enjoy the movies, we enjoyed like sitting together and trying to figure it out and like pausing it every 10 minutes to like call or text somebody with a question and like trying to decipher the story and finding like little pieces that we did like about each movie. Like, that was really, really fun. And so honestly, at this point, I don't want to pay for more storage on my phone, and I'm just getting rid of old videos by posting them to TikTok so they can just live somewhere else. And I've got all of these Star Wars bros that are just like so angry at us because we don't love Star Wars. And I'm just sitting like, they're like, you know what, guys? Like, I love Twilight. As bad as it is, Twilight brings me so much joy. I know that the movies are terrible. And if you come and you say to me, like, I committed to watching all the Twilight movies and I watched them and they were the worst thing ever and I don't understand why you love them, but just because you love them, like, I sat down and watched them to try to get it, like, I would appreciate that. I'd be like, thank you. You don't need to love it. Everything is not for everyone. Like, whatever Disney movie I loved when I was 9 that people are ripping apart now, like retroactively, like I think Life Size is a big one that people are like, this movie is really questionable. You know, that doesn't take away the joy that I had watching it when I was however old it was when it came out, you know? Like, I'm not here trying to take your joy away. I think it's great that you're a fan of something that you love. I always celebrate fandom. And I'm just like, the fact that like anyone thinks that we would put time or energy into intentionally hating something and making fun of something is just so counterintuitive to like who we are as people and what we do with our time and energy that I'm just like, this is so frustrating. I feel like so much of what the internet gets upset about in a lot of cases is just semantics, like the whole are audiobooks considered reading debate. I am just like, I see people get so angry about this, and I am just like, all the like original poster of whatever the thing that you are all screaming on was saying is that listening and reading are physically different skills. They're not saying that if you listen to an audiobook, you're not a reader, you're not a consumer of literature, you're not someone that enjoys story. All they're saying is like, hey, when you post a review and you say like, I hated this book, and you meant like the narrators were really bad, that's different from like, I don't like how the writer crafted the story and like the words that they used, and they were just asking you to clarify, was this a reading experience or a listening experience? Because those are different things, and those are going to inform how I, as another reader reading the review, is going to interpret how I might experience the same story if I choose to read or listen to it. You know, why can't we just enjoy each other and support each other and say like, hey, you're a fan of that thing, I'm not. That's okay. You prefer listening to books, I prefer reading them. That's okay. That doesn't make either of us superior or inferior. And to segue that into what I'm learning from God right now, I feel like so currently it's the Advent season, so I'm doing this Advent study with my small group, and it's talking a lot about the positive aspects of anticipation and waiting, right? And they go through like the story of Jesus and talk about how from the split between the Old Testament and the New Testament was 400 years of silence. And then there was all of the waiting around like when Mary became pregnant and like in the whole giving birth to Jesus and all of that. Like there was a lot of waiting, and there were generations of people who like lived and died when God was silent and they were waiting. And then that how kind of the study is walking through like how all the people were thinking, and will potentially, I guess we can't know, but how we think people were thinking and feeling at the time, and then how the arrival of Jesus like would have been so much more exciting because of the wait and the anticipation leading up to that. And then the study walks through things like, okay, what's something that like you've been waiting on God for, that maybe you've been frustrated that you can change your mind or your perspective and look at this in a more positive way. And I do really like the idea of that, but the questions in the particular study that we're doing are very focused on like kind of why aren't you trusting that God will come through for you? It's kind of focused on, it feels like waiting for this thing has made you lose faith that God can do it, and like how can you remind yourself that he can? And I feel like I've never lost faith that God has the ability to do something. Like I'm always like, yeah, of course God works miracles, he can do anything. I typically lose faith in believing that God will do the thing for me, because I feel like there's a contradiction of beliefs, maybe I would call it, between like, oh, I totally believe that God will do that thing for me, so I'm going to act like he's going to do it for me and expect it. And then like, how dare you expect God to do anything for you? Like he's already done enough. And if he never did another thing, like you should be grateful and like still be fine. And it's just kind of like, where is the line? So one of the girls in my small group was mentioning this week that she feels like it's hard to focus on God's grace and the fact that God loves us, and it loves us in spite of our flaws. And like God is not waiting for us to be perfect. He's not waiting for us to do anything differently or become anything else before he will love us and accept us into the family. Like that's an automatic given. And so she was talking about the struggle of believing that, but not using that to say like, okay, well, I can do whatever I want because God will always forgive me and isn't going to punish me for my sins because they've already been forgiven. And so we got into this like nice conversation about how like, yeah, and I think the thing that stops you from going down that mentality is that the more time that you put into your relationship with God, like the more time that you spend in community with other believers, like reading scripture and meditating on it and praying and like really getting to know God, like the process of doing all of that does change your pattern of beliefs and the things that you focus on. Just to give you guys like a really practical example, like I have a reminder on my phone to pray for my boss before we meet. And it's not a prayer of like, God, let this meeting be okay and go well. It is a prayer of like, work miracles in this man's life, like give him and his wife and his children good health, help him to be seen in a positive light at work and his family by me, and also help me to be seen in a positive light by him. Help the two of us to see what the other one's strengths and weaknesses are and where we can step in to help each other. And whenever I pray that prayer, the meeting goes better in terms of I don't get angry, I don't shut down immediately, because I'm going into it with a mentality of like, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't want to hang on to like stuff that has been said or done in the past that like make this a difficult working relationship. Like I want to focus on the positive aspects of it because we are working together for the foreseeable future and I want that to go well. And so that's just an example of how I feel like prayer can help you move things in a positive direction, and it keeps my brain focused on the good and the positives as opposed to keeping my brain focused on what's not working, going into the meeting half listening, being angry, not following up with stuff, not following through, maybe being snippy, being rude, and then being like, oh, that was rude, but God will forgive me because he has grace. And I think it's also just helpful to know that I am never too little or too much for God. Like I can always just go to God in prayer, like as I am in the moment with whatever I'm feeling and whatever I'm thinking and whatever is going on. But with people, this is a whole other story, right? Because people will think that I am too much or too little. So I do want to start off this section with a question to the people out there who are quote unquote bad texters. Like if you are one of the people who on a regular basis, you reach out to somebody and you say, hey, how are you? And they respond with maybe a paragraph or two explaining how they are and telling you what's going on and like updates since you last talked. And you either do not read that message or you choose not to respond to it or you get distracted and you legitimately forget about it. But a minimum of 6 weeks go by before you come back to the chat and you're like, oh my gosh, I never responded. I forgot. But now 6 weeks has passed. So they're probably doing differently. And then you're like, hey, how are you again? And then same thing happens, and this happens repeatedly, indefinitely, to where you're never telling the person how you're doing, you're never following up after they told you how they're doing, and like months, years go by with this type of communication. As the person who is doing that, this is a legitimate, genuine question from somebody who's on the other side of this with multiple different people. What are you getting out of that interaction? Because from my perspective, I'm not getting to know you because I'm not getting anything back. And so it feels like we're never really having a conversation. We're not getting closer. We're not learning about each other. Like we may as well be just saying hi or like liking the same thing over and over. And it's just kind of like a complete waste of time. I can understand if this happens with people that you see in person on a regular basis. Like if there's like a coworker that you talk to every day at work, and then when you're texting, it's just these like random check-ins to like stay in touch. Or if it's like a neighbor or even a family member or a friend where like there are points in time where you guys are having real-time in-person connection, where you are building those relationships and getting to know each other and getting closer and all of that. But I'm talking about like people, like long distance friendships where we don't get that in-person time and we're like, we don't work together. We're not seeing each other. Like the only way to sit down and have a conversation is if we plan to do it. Like we either need to have a Zoom call or a phone call, or we need to be sending voice notes back and forth for a length of time that we can finish the conversation. You know, I'm talking about like relationships like that where people live in other states or countries and neither of us has the money or the time had to travel to see each other. And the only way that we have this relationship is if we converse back and forth in some type of digital medium. And I feel like I have a lot of those people in my life who repeatedly just say, hi, how are you? And give me literally nothing else. Or like once a year, it's like Merry Christmas. And that's the only message that they ever send. And like, I legitimately want to know what people get out of this, because I have an issue where like I get really angry because I feel like, why am I putting the time and energy into telling you how I am and sharing my life with you if you're not going to even acknowledge that I did that, and you're not going to engage, and you're not going to share anything back? So typically, like what I do with those people is I start pulling back and I say like, all right, whenever this person reaches out and asks how I am, I'm not going to give them a paragraph. I'm going to just say, I'm fine, you? And usually that doesn't change anything for them. Like they keep just reaching out every 6 weeks to be like, how are you? And so then I'm like, okay, maybe this has nothing to do with me. Like maybe it's not that they're wanting to ask how I am. Maybe they're like in the middle of a stressful time and they just want a distraction, and they know that I respond quickly and it will distract them if I send them a little paragraph about what I'm doing, or if I even answer their message. Then they're like, great, I got my distraction, like I can move on. But if that's the case, then it feels like I'm being used, because even though, you know, this conversation only took 30 seconds of my time, right? Like it's not like it harmed me. It didn't take a lot of time. It wasn't hard, but it's also like it was a waste of my time. And ultimately, the issue that I have with stuff like this is feeling like my time is not valued. I've had some people over the years tell me that I am too much, that I am very hard to be friends with because my expectations are too high and my standards are too high, and just nobody can live up to like what I want from a friend. And so I'm trying to really take this feedback and learn something from it. However, at the same time, what I'm struggling with is I don't feel like my expectations are too high. I feel like what I want from a friend is what I give to a friendship. And I understand that we're not always going to be 50-50. Like, I understand that there are going to be seasons where somebody is going through something and I'm going to have to give more in that season. And there are going to be seasons where I'm going through something and I need the other friend to give more. But I feel like asking people to respond to messages in a way that completes a conversation, I don't feel like it's too much. And I'm not talking about like, I see those videos all the time where people are like, complaining about friends that get mad that like, that say like, oh, you're sending me memes on Instagram, but you're not texting me back. And they're like, yeah, I'm not texting you back because I only have the energy to like scroll through memes. I don't want to hold a conversation right now. That's fine. Like, you have your right. It's your phone. It's your time. It's your attention. You have every right to disperse it how you see fit. I have no problem with people sending me random memes on Instagram while not responding to my messages. What I have a problem with is somebody claiming to be my friend that has asked me to share something with them. And then I have taken the time to share the thing with them. And then weeks or months go by and they never finish the conversation. They never come back to the chat to respond to the thing that I shared with them. They never answer any of the questions that I asked them about their life. And then so much time passes that now the thing that we were discussing is over. And then they're trying to start a new conversation, which they're also not going to complete. Because at that point, it feels like to me that that person views my time as less valuable than theirs. And that's where I feel like the discrepancy comes in. And then it begs the question of like, am I actually asking for too much? Are my standards actually too high? Or am I just asking the wrong people to fulfill friendship needs? And I just need to go find the right people. My hard conversation of the week is a conversation that I had with one such friend. And just to give you guys a little bit of background, like this is, and I have many friends that do this. So like just personally, I am legitimately looking into trying to understand why they are the way that they are. Because as if you've been listening to this for a while, or especially if you know me personally, you know that I am super type A. I'm a little bit OCD. I have to clear notifications and I never take more than 48 hours to respond to people. And I also struggle with depression. And when I am depressed, the way that my depression manifests is usually I get very tired, I get very sad, I cry a lot, I sleep a lot. But if I have things to do, that like depression goes on pause for me. So I mean, like a typical day when I'm depressed is like I will lay in bed until I have a meeting at work when somebody has to physically see me. And then I will pop up, I'll go to the meeting, I'll crush the meeting, and I'll be right back in bed after. And same thing if my friends text me, especially if a friend calls, I will pop up, I will answer the phone, I will be like Taylor Swift, I can do it with a broken heart, and I will crush it, and I will show up for that friend, and then I will be right back in bed. I totally understand that depression manifests differently for different people, and I'm super high functioning, other people are not, so I'm not expecting anyone else to be able to do this, just as a caveat. But I do have multiple friends that do not finish conversations with me. And so the friend in particular that I had the hard conversation with this week is somebody that we do that like every 6 weeks, hey, how are you? And it's like never happening thing. So I had mentioned to this friend, like, I got to a point where I did what I described earlier. I started pulling back and I didn't even bother to like give them more information about me. And I would just say, fine, you. And then this person did not even like notice that I had done that. And so initially I decided I wasn't going to talk to them about it because I felt like if they get to a point where they notice that like my communication has drastically changed and they reach out to me and they say like, hey, like I feel like you're not really talking to me anymore, like is something going on, then I totally would have had a conversation about it. But I was like, if they don't notice and they don't care, then this just really isn't a person that I need to converse with on a regular basis, and that's fine. Like I have friends to converse with. It's totally fine if me and this person like just become acquaintances, like no big deal. Because I was becoming more and more and more frustrated with them over time, primarily because this person would make a lot of commitments that were not followed through on. So like they would offer to do things for me that then they then would not do, and they would never come to me and say like, hey, I shouldn't have taken this on, I can't actually do this. It was like they would say they would do it, I would wait, months would go by, and then I would have to be like, you clearly are not going to do this, so I'm going to just take it back and do it myself. And they'd be like, yeah, you're right, okay. And then this person had also asked me to do them a pretty significant favor. And I was like, you know what? You're my friend. I care about you. Happy to do you this favor. However, this is kind of an odd favor, and it doesn't seem like it is the most financially responsible or time efficient way to solve your problem. So I did some research into what they were needing done, and I found all of these different avenues that I thought would be more efficient and potentially cheaper for them. I sent them all of that info. Some time went by. They didn't ever respond to that stuff that I sent, started talking to me about other stuff. And then more time passed that we hadn't talked. And then they popped back up and were like, oh, okay, so you're going to do this thing for me, right? And I was like, did you look at those other options that I laid out for you? And they were like, oh, you sent other options? I totally missed that. And so even though I know that like this person has a lot going on and like was not intentionally ignoring me, was not upset with me, was not trying to demean me in any way, that did not take away from me feeling like I spent time and energy doing this research for you that I sent to you, and then you could not even be bothered to review what I sent to you to see. And you're still coming back and still asking me to do this favor that really doesn't make any sense to me. Now, this is what I'm thinking and feeling. I didn't say this to them because I know that they are a very caring and sweet person, and like we're not intending for me to feel this way at all. So what I said to them was, yeah, I sent it back on like this day at this time. If you could go back and look at this message. They were like, okay, I will. That was the last that we ever talked about the thing that they wanted me to do. So time went by and I realized that they no longer needed me to do the favor, but I'm sitting here like, they never closed the loop with me to say like, hey, I decided to go with a different option. I no longer need you to do that. And the whole time I'm sitting here like, you know, I have to plan for this. Like, this is going to take money. This is going to take time. And I need to know, like, what are the dates? Like, how are we going to make this happen? And so again, to me, it felt like another wave of disrespect where it's like I'm spending time and energy and the other person is not acknowledging the time and energy that I've spent, and I hate to have my time wasted. So ultimately, we ended up having a conversation because this friend sent out like a mass text to a bunch of different people to say like, hey, I know that I've been like had a lot going on and not really responding to people well of late. If you're one of those people, I promise I'll get back to you soon. And if you're not one of those people, then awesome. But also, can you give me your email address so I can send a Christmas card? And so when I saw the preview of that message come through on my phone, it was just like the first sentence, right? So I was thinking, oh my gosh, like this person is acknowledging that like they haven't been following up and they're sending me an apology. Like, wow, I thought that was really cool because I didn't expect them to notice that there was an issue. And I was like so excited that they did. But then when I opened it and I read the whole message, I was like, okay, this is not even a personal message to me. This is a mass message that they copy and pasted to God knows how many people. And they're asking for my email address that they already have. So like they didn't, and I did talk to them about that and they were like, yeah, it was just easier to send a mass message. I could have gone through and checked and saw like whose information I already had and whose didn't, but it was just faster to do it this way. And so again, for me, I'm like, because if I were doing that, I would have taken the time to check, you know, whose information do I have and whose information do I need? And I would have sent a personal message to each individual person and not sent a mass message to all the other people, because I really care about people's time and energy. And it's not that this person doesn't. It's just that the way that we each show our care for people and for people's time and attention is very, very, very different. So that's when like we did sit down and started going back and forth to say like, this is the experience that I am having with you. can you, like, I don't think that you're aware of this. And they did confirm that, like, they totally were not aware of it. So we started there for me to just say, like, here's how I'm feeling with talking to you. And I'm kind of at a point where I don't feel like you have the time and energy to give to the number of people that you're trying to be friends with. And I gave them an example of another friend that I have that had the same issue, who was one of my very best friends that I love to death. And I said, like, this person, when we first met, they would talk to me every day for a week and then they would disappear for 6 months. And I knew exactly why they were disappearing. They had a lot going on. They literally physically could not keep up with all of the people in their phone. However, I was like, for me, that gave me a panic response because I was like, are you dead? And I really wanted to talk to the person and I really wanted to be a part of their life, and they just couldn't do it. So we had to have a bunch of conversations about it. And essentially where we landed is that person and I, like, we do phone calls, because typically if we're texting, like, I'm only going to get so many days and then they're going to disappear. But when they call, we always talk for like a minimum of 2 hours. They're very attentive, like very personable, very caring, and like we're able to, like, we really catch up on a lot of stuff where we do have a complete conversation and we learn a lot about each other and we get closer. And so this friend that I'm having this hard conversation with, I was saying, like, that's really the piece that I think you and I are missing, is we keep having like pieces of conversation and fragments of conversations that the loop is never closed on. So we're not getting to that point where we're like learning more about each other. And I was like, also this friend that like I settled on phone calls with, they essentially said, like, I can only have 5 people in my inner circle. And they said, like, their priorities are their family, their significant other, and they have like maybe 4 friends outside of that they keep up with on a regular basis. And that's all that they're able to do. And I shared this story with my other friend just to say, like, it's possible that is what you may need to do. Like, maybe you're trying to have too many friends and you really need to tighten your circle. Whereas like somebody like me, I have a pretty large circle of friends because I have a very high capacity to hold a lot of different emotions, a lot of different stories. I can keep a lot of different conversations organized in my head. Like, I don't have to scroll back in the conversation to see what we were last talking about. Like, as soon as the person's name pops up on my phone, I know what they're responding to. And I think the most important part of this conversation was for me to be able to express to my friends, like, I'm not upset with you. I'm not asking you to do specifically anything different. I'm asking you to acknowledge the way that your behavior makes me feel, and that's not conducive to a long-term friendship for me. Like, this is not something that I can continue to, because I feel like I'm constantly giving of myself and like not getting anything in return. And then they had the opportunity to say, like, I actually really do like want us to be closer and to continue a friendship and find a way of communication that works for us both. So like, I'm super glad that we like reached out and had the conversation and like are able to move forward from there. But I think ultimately, going back to the like too much or the too little thing, like, I do not believe that I am too much, and I do not believe that I am asking for too much. I believe that I have certain needs when it comes to my friends, and it is my responsibility to communicate those needs to my friends, and it is my friends' responsibility to then hear that and say, yes, I can meet that, or no, I can't, or I can't meet it in that way, but here's what I can do instead. Will that work? And then we have a dialogue. And the same the other way, like for my friends to communicate their needs to me, and then for me to be able to say, yes, I can meet that, or no, I can't. And I think it also has to do with the specific people, because again, like I have a very high capacity for like others, and for I can do a lot of tasks. Like I like just really can get a lot done in a short amount of time. And because of that, like I have very strong relational needs that other people don't necessarily have. So like maybe there is somebody who like, yeah, all I wanted to know was that you were doing good. I literally just want to check on you every 6 weeks and just say, hi, how are you? And just hear that you're good. And that's all I need. Like, as your friend, that makes me feel good. I'm like, great, I checked on my friend. We did it. And I am like, that's not enough for me. I don't want to just hear that you're good. I want like specifics. I want to like actually be in each other's lives. And if that's all you want to do, it's not that I won't do that, but then you're not a friend to me. You're an acquaintance. You're like a random person. You're like the guy at the grocery store that I see every time I get groceries, that like, yeah, he's bagging the groceries and it's asking me how I've been since I was last in the grocery store. And I ask about his wife and kids, like sweetest man, but like, he's not my friend. We're not going to hang out and like talk about our life, right? It's like I'm going to see him when I go to the grocery store, and we're going to do light, like, hey, how have you been? Have you gone on a trip? Like, is anyone visiting for the holidays? And keep it moving. And like, but it's also understanding like how I may define friend differently than another person. Like my definition of acquaintance might be somebody else's definition of friend. And that doesn't mean that I'm too much. It doesn't mean that they're too little. It doesn't mean that either of us is better or worse than the other. Like neither of us is inadequate. Like we're all just different and trying to figure out how to communicate our differences in the best way that we can to the people that we are trying to do life with. What I'm watching right now, I think that I have been to all the screenings that I'm going to go to this year because I still have another trip left. It's the 20th. I still have another trip to go on, and then the year is going to be over. But I am currently trying to get through season 6 of The Vampire Diaries, and it is a struggle. I'm trying to watch the new Knives Out movie on Netflix also, and I don't know if I just haven't been in the mood to watch it or if I don't like it. I'm like an hour and 15 minutes in, and I was very bored for like the first 40 minutes, and then a bunch of people told me that like it's going to get better. But my other thing is like, if your movie is 2.5 hours long, and people have to like coach each other to like get through, like it's gonna get better, then is it a good movie? It's one of those things where it's just like, there's so much content out there now. And I do understand that like some stories are intentionally a slow burn. But at the same time, if you cannot hold my attention, then there is a movie or a show or a book that will. So again, I just really highly value my time and don't want it to be wasted. As always, thank you so much for listening. Feel free to leave me a review if you want. New episodes, give or take, Wednesdays at 6 a.m. Central. The episodes are always released on a Wednesday at 6 a.m., but not necessarily every Wednesday. I will do my best to be more consistent in 2026. But then again, I think I'm going to hit 30 episodes this year. And if there's 52 weeks in a year, that I passed the 50% mark. So that's good. And as always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, or want to chat, feel free to email me at realhonestpod@gmail.com. You can also send me a message on Instagram, but it will probably go into the other folder. So your better bet is emailing. Okay, bye.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, hear me and you, let's keep it real honest.